To make the point that even though at a very late hour, Banda, the member for that into the future, especially I should thank the minority leader. Also, we had some people, honorables, what is before us, the company's bill, required assistance for his assistance and bringing proposals to amend Federal South and Yumeduanchi Fuseni Inusa in these matters. I think at this stage, the class of table, in particular, they should not consider that the House has overlooked Shaibu. Speaker, I cannot leave out. We cannot any longer continue with the consideration of the proposal. The Speaker, no law that we have chartered institutes, I guess Ahuma and his team crafted in this house is sacrosanct. We can complete that tomorrow. At various times, we will properly capture saying, therefore, sometimes every law that we have made has had, we have been most supportive, and we hope that what you have done, Speaker, thank you, and for now, we are in your house. The Speaker, we have a core group that have always been very come for some amendments in the final document. I must admit that sometimes it gets, we are in your hands to pronounce adjournments. And the Honorable Roxanne Lafiama, point or the other, in time. They can always be a bit confusing when they have to put together for us to go and have some rest. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Supportive. And I say the Honorable, once we start implementing and we find it where the entirety of the bill, which has gone through several, entirety of the bill, which has gone through several, entirety of the bill, which has gone through several. Ras Mubrak looking at me, pleading that I should not to amend. Speaker, the practice of it, amendments. And that is why lately, minority leader, the Speaker, will indicate to us whether it is necessary to change his name.
At this stage, ordinarily, we are
to make the point that even though at a very late hour, we had some people bringing proposals to amend, they should not consider that the House has overlooked the proposals. The Speaker, no law that we have crafted in this House is sacrosanct. Every law that we have made has had to come for some amendments at one point or the other in time. There can always be space once we start implementing and we find it worthy to amend. The Speaker, the practice of it will indicate to us whether it is necessary to proffer further amendments. On this occasion, to thank my colleagues, especially those of them on the winnowing committee, the Honourable Banda, the member for Federal South and Yumeduanchi Fuseni Inusa, the class of table, in particular, Mr. Ahuma and his team. We are in your hands to pronounce adjournments for us to go and have some rest. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
In your hands, but once the leader have made comment to some specific issues, it's only appropriate that I attempt to respond.
Moment for all of us from about 2007, when the initial draft was done during the tenure of the fourth parliament. The fifth and sixth parliament have had opportunity to handle the bill, but finally on the tenure of the seventh parliament it's been passed. The next steps are to get presidential assent to the bill, and then also to very quickly move towards implementation, particularly of the behind-the-scenes infrastructure, so that by the time we start the next financial year, as the current law says, we'll be ready to see it fully. So I think that's the good news that we have all witnessed here today. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to take them.
When will the President give his assent to the bill?
Like the Speaker mentioned, the Parliament will have to tidy up the final draft of the bill and then transmit it to the Office of the President. And the President has mentioned that he would proceed to sign it off immediately he receives it.
How is the government taking the minority leader request that is make sure funds are provided to this?
I don't understand.
Minority leader,
Yeah.
during some estimate that the government should ensure that the next budget, this office will be adequate.
No, I mean, we are all interested in that same matter. That is why the background exercises have to start, hopefully before the mid-year review, so that we can ensure that for example, recruitment, training, the kind of back-end infrastructure is put in place. And then at the start of the next financial year, which means it should be in the next budget, we'll be able to ensure that we have the necessary resources to give full effect to the law as it stands now. So I think all of us are in agreement.
Earlier, CSOs disagreed with portions of the bill, and indeed the minority leader wanted to champion that particular cause. But you didn't see the light of day?
For all legislation, you would have people having various views. We're of the view that the bill in its current form is sufficient to meet the tenets of Article 21(1)(f). And indeed, if there's anything else that can be done, even the Constitution itself as a point is amended. So if there's anything that needs to be done, our view was that let's pass it now. If in the future we need to make any amendments, we're happy so to do.
As is the case, some regulations may have to come with a bill that has been passed. Is there room for further consultation with CSOs on the regulations?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, in the bill itself, we engaged extensively with CSOs, the Media Coalition, etc. And, of course, in the preparation of the regulations, we will do same as well.
Is there regulations coming anytime soon?
One of the first things we are going to do is a workshop to tidy up the roadmap for implementation before the mid-year review. We need to do that so that in the mid-year budget review and in the second half of the year, we do all the background work, which would ensure that in 2020 we'll be ready to go towards full implementation.
Honorable, we have up to a year, as you mentioned, to implement this bill that has just been passed. Once the president assents to it, becomes an act of parliament. How soon should we expect you to roll out other measures? For instance, there's a talk about appointment of a commission. There's talk about appointment of information officers across board. How soon should we expect this to kickstart?
As I mentioned, we are working between now and half year, that is June, to tidy up the roadmap for implementation and get the necessary cabinet approval for the roadmap for implementation. And then we'll use the second half of the year to do all of this background work so that by the start of the next financial year, as the bill says, we're ready to implement. That's our target.
Yeah, funding. Are we assured that in the next budget we'll have adequate resources towards the implementation?
The government is committed to put the portions of the national resource envelope that is available to facilitate this law at the disposal of the agencies that are responsible for implementing this law. Admittedly, yes, it requires a lot of significant resources, and I'm sure when it gets to budget 2020, we'll explore how to ensure that the funding is not a one-off funding, the funding is regular, so that we can all get the benefits out of this law that we have passed.
Finally, we would like one thing.